One.
Hello, my name is Paul McLendon and I am the Livingston Junior High Tennis Coach. And I assume if you are watching this video right now that you are interested in being a part of the tennis team. And so I am doing this to give you an idea of what our program is like, because a lot of people don't know anything about tennis and don't know anything about a tennis program. So hopefully this will give you some information that will be helpful in your decision to decide whether or not you should apply for the tennis team. And by the way, we do not have tryouts, and that's because most of my players have never played tennis. They've never picked up a racket. They have no clue what to do. So it's kind of hard to have tryouts. So instead, I just take applications. I talk to your teachers about what kind of student that you are and get some more information, and I select a team from those applications. And we will have a team of about 30 players. And some of those will be from players that played last year. Some of them will be from beginners. And it is for 7th and 8th grade boys and girls. So if you are interested, let me give you a few more ideas about what I'm looking for. First off, you need to be passing your classes, all your classes. So if you apply for the tennis team, what I'll do is that I'll go to all your teachers and I will say, okay, how's this student doing in your class? And they'll say, well, they're failing my class. Well, that probably means you will not be selected for the tennis team. And if you are failing, don't apply. And also, if you have missing grades, I need a player I can count on, because our players feed into the high school program. And we've done this before. We've developed players and got them ready, and they're in the starting lineup. And then we have to play a match, and they're ineligible because they failed a class. So if you're a person that's not sure if you can keep your grades up, then probably tennis is not going to be the choice for you. Also, I need players that are not a problem as far as behavior. And so when I talk to your teachers, if I say, well, what's their behavior in class? And they say, well, they cut up a lot. They're talking whenever I'm trying to teach. That's not the player I'm looking for, because that will spill over into my practices. And I don't have time to deal with that while I'm rushing all these players through trying to teach them. So if that's a problem, if you've gotten write-ups or tags, then please don't apply. You also will need to have to be able to get a ride over to the high school courts and also be picked up from the high school. And you'll notice that we don't have tennis as an athletics here because we have no tennis courts here. So all of our practices are done after school over at the high school courts. So that you'll have to get a ride over to the courts, and when practice is over, you'll have to be able to be picked up. And I've had this happen before. I have someone, they applied, I selected them to the team, and then they tell their parents, oh, I'm going to play tennis, and their parent tells them, well, I can't get you to the courts. We live 15 miles out of town. They ride the bus home, well, they can't get back. So that is, so that's something you need to be aware of if that's going to prevent you from being on the team. Also, another thing that we're having to deal with, and it's become more and more of a problem, and that is dealing with kids that are not able to practice enough to learn enough. Our season will last for 2 months, from October 1st to the end of November. And during that time, we'll practice on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Our practice times will probably be 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 6 o'clock. And I know there are a lot of other activities going on here. We got football, we got volleyball, we got youth soccer, we've got cheerleading, we've got band, and we have a lot of kids that do some of these other things. And if you can't fit into one of those time slots, 4 o'clock to 5, 5 to 6, or 6 to 7, or if you can only come like one day a week, then unless you're a returning player that's had some experience, or you've taken my tennis camp or Coach McFarland, the high school coach, tennis camp in the summer, and you're a beginner and you're going to try to learn how to play tennis one day a week, in 7 or 8 weeks, that's probably not going to happen. So it may not be that you can do junior high tennis, and instead what you may want to do is try to be a part of my tennis camp. I have a tennis camp for the month of June, and it's a good way to learn tennis because I have smaller numbers, much more than the ratio of 30 to 1 like I have, 30 or 35 to 1 like I do now. And so it's a good way to learn. Most players that are in high school, they take lessons from me in the summer, and that's a good way to do that. And so you might consider that. It does cost some money, but it's very reasonably priced. And if you can't do the junior high tennis, keep that in mind as a possibility. All right, so it may be that I've eliminated some people already, but if you're still interested, I'm going to keep going and talk a little bit more about some of the things we do with our team. Now, one point I want to make right now is that typically I allow all my returning players to automatically be on the team. When they were 7th grade, if they're on the team, to automatically be on the 8th grade team. And this year I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make selections from everybody. And the reason I'm doing that is for two reasons. One is that I had some players that were on the team last year and they were on the roster, and I wouldn't recognize them if I saw them because they only came to a few practices, and so they didn't really learn anything. So I really need to consider whether I should allow them on the team again this year if they're not going to come to practice. Another thing is that some of my players last year, I had some teachers telling me that they were not acting very good in class. Either they were not performing well, their behavior was questionable, in which case I'm going to take that into consideration whether or not they should play this year. So just realize that if you're a returning player, you're going to have to apply and be selected just like everyone else. Now, our junior high program here is more of an instructional program. It is not really a competition program, and there's a reason for that. We used to be in a tennis district, and in the past we've had a junior high team for many years, and we've been in districts almost all those years. And we've been in the Conroe district, which is a really strong district with a bunch of country club players. And we've been in districts that have had big junior high programs, and we play a round robin schedule. We play a big tournament at the end. We travel and play matches, and that's what we've always done. Last year, when we redistricted, we got put in a district that does not have junior high tennis. We're the only team that has junior high tennis. And so when that occurred, and this occurred about 4 years ago, we got out of a tennis district. But fortunately, there were two other teams that also didn't have districts, and what are called independent teams. So we used to play those other two teams here and away, and so we got at least 4 matches in for our team to play. Unfortunately, last year when they redistricted, both of those teams were placed in tennis districts. So as a result, we have no one to play. So, ours is going to be an instructional program. We will have some playing that will take place during our practices for the people that are ready. We'll have a court where they're playing doubles, and hopefully we'll have some high school players able to help me out. I will spend most of my time focusing on one court, mainly working with ground strokes, forehands and backhands, because those are very hard to teach and to learn. And I'll hopefully have some high school kids that can come in and help you with serving, and also, help you with playing. And so, there's only one of me and there's 30 of y'all, so it's hard to meet. I can't do everything. So, but hopefully we'll learn some stuff this year. It takes years to become a tennis player. And the idea that you're going to come in here in 2 months and be a tennis player when you get finished, that is not going to happen. And even if you're pretty athletic. And by the way, if you can throw and catch, if you played some kind of baseball or softball, you will be a great advantage in tennis because there's a lot of carryover into tennis from those sports. If you can't throw and you can't catch, your learning curve will be much greater because it will take you a lot longer to serve. It'll be harder for you to track the ball and get to it and hit it. So just realize that, it's going to take longer if you haven't played sports when you were younger, other sports anyway. And by the way, if you've never played tennis in your life, that's not a problem because in some ways, I'd rather you not have played because if you've gone out and hit balls around, and some players, they say, I made the tennis team, I better go up and practice, so they get up and go and hit 1,000 balls off the backboard. Well, once they do that, they now have 1,000 repetitions of hitting the ball wrong, and so now when I try to teach them right, I've got to undo that and teach them the right way. So I'd rather just, come with a blank slate and let me just teach you, what you need to know from the beginning. So don't worry about not having tennis skills. Now, if you have had tennis lessons, either from me or Coach McFarland or Bonnie Bro, a lady who teaches here in town, or maybe some other school or a country club somewhere, if you have had lessons, put that on your application because that makes a difference. Obviously, if you had some training, you have some strokes, you have some skills. And so, your chances of getting selected will be much greater because you have that. Now, if you just go down to Matthews Park and have hit the ball around, then, that is no advantage. Okay, our program is a feeder program for the high school, and we try to feed them players to improve this team. Matter of fact, I was retired from coaching. I've coached, junior high, high school, college coaching, and I retired years ago. And our junior high program, they ended our junior high program. And so whenever I started teaching back over at the junior high, the high school coaches heard about it, and they asked me if I would come back and start up our junior high program. And I agreed to do it. And it is a challenge, I have to admit, but our program is here to help the high school program. We're feed players into it. We try to give them some skills so when they get to high school, they'll be able to be in their program. Our high school program is the most successful sport in the last 20 years. We have had more success, especially fall team tennis has been very successful. And in high school, you play all year long. It's not just a season like basketball season. You start in August, right when school starts, and you play until May. You have fall team tennis where you play as a team. You have boys and girls that play separate singles and doubles, and you play mixed doubles, and you play against other teams like that. And then the winners in district go on to regionals and all that. And we've been very successful doing that. And one of it's because we feed them good players out of the junior high program. In the spring, you play tournament tennis. So you'll play singles or doubles in tournaments. You miss school to do it, and you go off and play tournaments all day. And that's a lot of fun as well. And so and also in the high school program, they have tennis classes. It's not like here. We have no courts here, so we have no athletics in tennis. But in high school, you can sign up for a tennis class. By the way, to be selected for that class, because they have more people sign up for it than are allowed in the class because there's only so much room. So what will happen is the high school coaches, they contact me and I say, okay, here's who we have that wants to be on the tennis team. Who of these people can play? And I'll tell them the junior high tennis kids. And so those people can get in, whereas other people that are just beginners, their chances of getting into the class are much less. Unless you've had maybe the June tennis program, then that would be a great advantage as well. Also, another thing to think about in tennis is that it's a lifetime sport. It is not like most other high school sports. You have people that they play their last football game or their last baseball game their senior year in high school, and that's the last time they will play. And you got to realize that tennis, we have people that are 70 and 80 years old and they're still playing tennis. So it's a skill that if you can develop it, then you can use it for the rest of your life, and I think that's significant. Again, our practices are on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, starting on November 1st and going through starting on October 1st and going through the end of November. My tentative times I set up now are 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 6 o'clock, and that puts me out there about 3.5 hours after teaching all day, so that's plenty of court time. But I try to spread it out to try to accommodate as many kids as I can. Because some of them have to go early because they have stuff later. Some of them have to come later because they have stuff earlier. So I try to, to take care of as many players as I can. You'll practice for an hour, and you'll kind of rotate around. I'll work with a few players at a time, and I'll send them to the court to hit serves, hopefully with a high school player. They'll go to another court to look at how to play, and we just rotate around, learning different strokes. We try to teach the basic strokes: forehand, backhand, and serve, and that's the main 3 strokes. And then we teach them how to play matches whenever they get to where they can play, or where you can play. So we also try to teach net play when they're ready, which is volleys and overheads. And so it's pretty involved. To be a tennis player, to be a good tennis player, takes instruction. It takes someone that really knows how to teach it and can instruct it well, and you got to be able to follow directions and try to do things as well as you can. If you want to just come out and hit the ball any old way you want, then you don't need me. And you don't need to be on the tennis team. Just go out and play on your own, and then you can, do whatever. But, if you want to be a good player, it takes training, proper training to be good. And by the way, it's more than practice. I don't know if you realize that. You hear the expression, practice makes perfect. Okay, well, let's say you go practice your math facts, and you practice all day for a week, and you practice 2 + 2 is 5, and 4 + 4 is 10, and you practice a whole bunch of practice, but you practice wrong. Are you going to be better at math? No, you're not. You'll be worse. Practice doesn't make perfect. Correct practice tends to make perfect. And you've got to be instructed to know how to play, because how to hit a tennis ball is not a natural motion. You have to be instructed on how to do it. And that's difficult to do. And I've taught a lot of tennis. I've taught for over 40 years. I teach high school coaches. I teach at conventions where I teach high school coaches how to teach tennis. So, I know a little bit about what's going on. The problem is in our program just dealing with, that 30 or 35 to 1 teaching ratio is pretty tough to deal with. I have so little time to deal with each person, but I try to deal with kids individually where I can work with them individually, and it just takes a lot of repetition, a lot of time. Again, you won't learn to be a tennis player in this season. It'll take years for you to develop, but hopefully it's something if you're interested in, you'll continue on with it. We will try to work around other sports as much as we can. However, again, if you could only come to practice 1 day a week, that's going to be tough. You got to, and again, I hate turning people away because, I work with a lot of players that do other sports, but it's gotten harder and harder because they've changed, like the band practice time has changed. So now I used to work with players early before band practice, and now they start earlier, and so I'm having to try to deal with them at the end if we have time. It's just becoming more difficult. But we will try to work around other sports as well as we can. And you do not need any equipment for tennis. I will provide everything for you. I've got all the tennis balls. I've got $2,000 worth of my own rackets that you'll be able to use. The only cost that would be for a shirt. And we will have shirts cost $15. They're like this. They have our last name printed on the back. They're nice shirts. But by you paying for them, you get to keep them. And I still see high school kids all the time playing in their junior high tennis shirts. So that's the only expense you would have for the season this year. And let me just say this, that I wish that everyone that applied I could take, but the problem is that I can only handle about 30 or 35 kids by myself, and I'll probably have 60 or 70 kids apply. So I've got to turn away a lot of kids, and I don't like doing that. It's just that I don't have a choice. So just realize that fill out that application as best you can. And if you don't qualify, if you realize you really are not who I'm looking for, then don't apply. But if you do, I'm going to try to pick, some players the best I can. And if you are one of those, great. I will try to, I wish I could take everybody, but I just can't. Okay, let's look up here and look at some of these dates that we have here. Our applications are due this Friday, September 20th. So if you'll get those to me, my room number is C121 down on the science hall. If you'll bring those to me, or if you turn them in the office, they usually get them to me, and that would be okay. The applications, by the way, will be in the office, that you can pick them up from there. You can pick them up from my room in C121. Also, if you're watching this video, you got it on the junior high website, and also there should be a link there with the application on it somewhere that you could look at, or maybe print off. But we do have them at school. Team selections will be made by Tuesday, that next Tuesday on the 24th. I'll talk to your teachers on Monday and Tuesday, select my team. I'll try to contact you by Wednesday the 25th. Then on Thursday, the 26th, we'll have a mandatory team meeting at 6 o'clock in the cafeteria here in the junior high. And that's where I'll discuss, and we'll sign up for practice times and all kind of stuff. And then practices will hopefully start on Tuesday, October 1st, right? Passing, good behavior, tennis lessons, transport the court, practices and matches. To be able to play, you have to have a current physical and UIL paperwork. So if you've gotten a physical in the last year, if you got a physical at the end of last school year, then you're good. But if you got one last fall, if you played last fall and got one for tennis last fall, you have to get another physical done. Now, I would wait on getting a physical until you're selected to the team. So once you're selected, then get your physical, and then we're good. UIL paperwork also has to be updated every single year. There are the applications I was talking about will look something like this. It's got things to apply. You fill out. There's one thing on here that's really important, and that is it says, I cannot practice. And it gives Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and it gives the practice times. If you cannot practice at those times, on those days or at that time, put that down there and tell me why. Because you say, I've got football practice, I've got, soccer, these days. So I need to know, because I'll take that into consideration when I consider who I put on the team. Right, well that's, I think, some information that will help you. Again, if you'll get that application, get it done. get it into me by next Friday, and hopefully we'll go from there. Thank you.